Okay, so not feeling the greatest. I don't know if it was something that I ate or not, but man, today I'm just not feeling it. So it's been a bit. Hold on a second. Okay, have to adjust the heater towards this direction. The man cave gets cold. But it's been a bit since I actually did a video because I've been a little busy. And I cranked out a lot of videos a little bit ago that were all online. I uploaded them all online, but I haven't actually made them live yet. So I was going to get around to do that, and then got busy, so I wasn't able to do it. And then today, I just start feeling like garbage. So it's not good. I don't think it's the sickness. If it is, it came from Noelle, which is not out of the realm of possibility because she does go to the studio mostly now. And it's possible that she could have brought it back. But I don't think that's the case. I did have, however, a slight fever a few days ago. That fever was like 99 or something like that. We tested it on different things, thermometers in the mouth, one that you swipe across the head. They all said 99 point whatever. So it was low grade, but it was only for like an hour, if that. So, but today it's been, and that was probably 2-3 days ago. Today I've been, in the bathroom a lot. So I don't know if we had fish last night, so I don't know if it's the fish. Fish can be bad if that is the case. Everybody else ate the same thing and they're not feeling anything, so I don't know. But that's not what this video is about, and you guys don't care about what I had for dinner last night. I'll be all right. This is because someone asked a really cool Ask HershNoeie question, and often I get Ask HershNoeies that are very deep, and this one's not, but it's a really good question. And I'm not going to read it word for word, but someone asked me what would be, what are my 5 top city skylines? Now, for those that don't know, I absolutely love the skylines of cities. It is something that I've always loved since I was a kid. I remember being a kid and wanting to go down to because Bowling Green, Kentucky ain't got no skyline. I mean, we would drive through the university there. They have a lot of pretty decently tall buildings, and I just would love it. I thought it was, I'm in the big city. But I always, as a kid, wanted my mom or sister to go down to Nashville because they do have a skyline. And my sister would get as close as she could, but never actually went in. I don't know why. My mom and sister never liked to travel, and that never changed for my mama, and my sister's the same way. She just never really traveled much. And even though Nashville was only 60 miles away, it was just a no-go. It's not like they've never been down there. Obviously, they've been quite a bit, but back in the day, it just wasn't the case. And so Nashville, when I was able to get down there on my own, loved seeing the skyline. When I moved to Indianapolis, I loved that because the buildings are even taller and even more densely packed. So I loved it. When I went to Chicago, mind blown, because that has been the only place I've seen the tallest building in my life. Right? I know that there's taller ones, but back in the day, that was the tallest in the world. So, I've been to Chicago and, Sears Tower, which is now Willard Tower or some, I don't know. To me, it's still Sears Tower. So I remember, being pretty far away, like, far out of the city, and you can still see downtown because, the Midwest is flat, and it looked like a stick. It's sick. It's just sick. So what are my top 5 city skylines? These are all cities that I've been to. Now, there's a lot of cities that I would like to go to that I haven't been to yet. But this is of the cities that I have been to. All right. They're not in any particular order. New York City. Obviously, New York is going to be there for me because it's the biggest city. But New York, if you look at all of Manhattan, is just built, right? I remember when I was in New York, I went to, in Central Park, it's just ringed around all four corners with high rises. It's pretty darn cool. You have all of this nature and you look, and then there's nothing but buildings, right? So that was cool. Obviously, it has a lot of iconic towers. When I was there, the new World Trade Center tower wasn't there, right? It was still just a construction site. I actually did sign. Let me find it. Hold on a second. Where is that? My kids mess with it. See, that ain't it. My kids mess with it all the time. And dang, where is it? Oh, here it is. When I was there, I actually signed the beam that is now in that one super tall building. I forget its name. I don't think it's the Freedom Tower anymore. But anyway, One World Trade. I don't know. But I was there and I signed it. In fact, I got a pen, and this was the beam that would top the building out. And I also got this Sharpie, right? So I was there and signed that. I can't remember what year it was when I went, but I was there. So it was pretty cool. New York was pretty cool and went all over the place, right? Went to Brooklyn, walked on the Brooklyn Bridge, went up to Harlem, was down in lower Manhattan. So in New Jersey, it was in Newark. But I would have to say New York City skyline is very iconic. You see it in a lot of movies. I look at a lot of old videos, like when filming first started in like the late 1800s or whatever. And you can see how New York once was, and just, I like seeing stuff like that. So it's always been one of those iconic skylines. And so New York City obviously is going to be there. So these cities are going to bounce from East Coast to West Coast to the Midwest. So that's just going to be the case, right? The next one, which is kind of like the mini New York, Chicago, is going to be up there too, because again, massive skyline. I've been to Chicago a lot because I lived in Indianapolis. We would go up to Chicago often. Chicago is just an amazing city. It gets a lot of negative, but it's really just an amazing city. Every time I've been, you always see nothing but construction cranes in the sky. It is just such a awesome city. A lot of neighborhoods, a lot of different places to go. Obviously, Sears Tower, John Hancock Building, all of these different buildings are there. And it just really makes it awesome. Even their water tower, which is downtown, is modeled after a building. It looks like a high-rise because they built it into the fabric of everything. The Magnificent Mile, right? All the shopping. It's just, Chicago holds a very deep place for Noelle and also for me. It's a really cool city. So I would say Chicago is going to, obviously, that skyline's going to be there. San Francisco. So this is San Francisco. Again, not in any sort of order. San Francisco, to me, has a very iconic skyline as well. It's like if you throw up skylines, New York people will pick out, Chicago they would pick out, and they would pick out San Francisco because obviously there's buildings there that don't exist any place else. I forget the name of the building, but it's a triangle looking building. That high rise is there. Colt Tower, I believe that's what it's called. It's not that big now compared to everything else they have, but it's a pretty decent sized structure. That's pretty cool. The Bank of America building, all of those really and truly make San Francisco look amazing. You have the Bay out there, San Francisco Bay Bridge, all of the Golden Gate, I guess. All of those are just really awesome, right? So it's all a part of the skyline. So to me, I've been to San Francisco like maybe, I don't know, 5 times, I guess. And so it's just an amazing, cool city. And it always shocked me that you could have so many big buildings that close in such an earthquake-ridden zone. Um, but obviously, they do very well in Tokyo, right? So, yeah, I mean, back in the day, I didn't really quite get that. Like, how are they, but they obviously have the technology to make sure that everything's good to go. But San Francisco is going to be one of those cities. Miami. Now, Miami, I had a picture of Miami from back in the day, back in the day, like in the 80s. And it was one of the pictures that was selling at one of the stores in my hometown. The picture's about this big, right? I don't have it anymore, but it showed downtown Miami, and it really didn't have that many buildings. And it was the typical buildings that you always saw in everything. Miami Vice, you saw them in a lot of different things. And there's really only about maybe a dozen buildings that were of size. And I always wanted to go. It's where it's a elevated people mover, but it's like a little bus, right? But I always wanted to go to Miami when I was a kid because, obviously things like Miami Vice played a big role in it, and just wanting to go there, right? I just thought it would be cool to be there. And the picture that I had, which I don't know what happened to it, cemented that. As I got older and I actually visited Miami, and I've been to Miami maybe 2 or 3 times, I guess. It always is just such a magical city because a lot of the buildings are they look white. Now I don't know if they're painted white, or if the concrete makes it look that way. I don't know. Don't care. But when you're seeing it from the water, like if you're on a boat or a ship, because I've taken cruises from there and all that, flights from there when I went to Haiti. But from a distance, the contrast between the buildings and the water is just sick. It is sick. To me, Miami stands as an iconic high rise because, for one, a lot of those buildings that you see today are super brand new. Super brand new. Because again, back in the day, you didn't see hardly any. And so they've really started to build up Miami quite a bit. There's high rises literally everywhere. And the skyline is drastically changing. But I would have to say I was a fan of the old Miami skyline, and I'm a bigger fan of the new Miami skyline. Now, number 5 should not be a surprise, and it's not number 5 in order. If anything, it's probably number 1 if I was going to put these all in order, and that would have to be Seattle. Seattle, like the other 4, Chicago, New York, I forgot, San Francisco. Those 3 cities' skylines are very iconic. Some people may get confused with New York and Chicago. Some people may. Most people won't. But when it comes to San Francisco, people, identify. Seattle, people identify because you have the Space Needle that is there. You have Smith Tower, which was the tallest building for the longest time on the West Coast. It's a very iconic building. You have the Columbia building that's there, which is the big tall one. There's been others that have been put up. The F5 building, which is now like towering up there too. It looks like the Bank of America building in Hong Kong. Mind you, this person said the 5 American cities. If they didn't say American cities, there's a couple of others I can come up with that, and Hong Kong would be right there. That skyline is just stupid. Okay? Stupid. But anyway, not stupid bad, but stupid good. Hong Kong skyline is just, I'm done. Like, I've never seen, and I'll come back to Seattle, I've never seen a city like that, ever. Never. I mean, they've built high rises up on the mountain. We took the peak tram up, and it is sick. Like, you're going up at an angle like this. Up to the top of that is this mall, which is in a big building that's shaped like an upside down D. It's a big giant building. Went to the Jockey Club, which is cool. You look out, you see nothing but buildings, right? The Jockey Club is where they actually have races and stuff, but it is sick. It is sick. HSBC Bank building there. It's just sick. Now, the F5 building here looks like that building in Hong Kong. But anyway, and then we went into the, I forget the name now, but they have two buildings that look the same. They're just different height. They're just like, like a big column. I think they're the financial something building or something. I can't remember. But you can go up there and actually see Hong Kong banks print the money. And different banks print different versions of money. But you can see the different processes. You can't see money being printed live. They're not crazy. But you can actually see the process that they take in terms of making the money. Not at an exactness, because obviously that would not be a good thing. But you can just kind of see it and what they use and different things like that. It's amazing. But Hong Kong, if I had to choose worldwide, would be one of them. I haven't been to Tokyo yet, but that would be one of them. Australia has a lot of cities, from Melbourne to Sydney, that those skylines would definitely be up there. Dubai. I haven't been to any of those places, but just from looking, those skylines are just stupid. You know what I'm saying? Stupid. But anyway, those are places that I definitely want to go, and they knock everything else out of the water. I'm sorry, but they just do. Getting back over to this direction, and then there's several places in China that are just dumb. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. Some of the Shanghai, for example. I have a friend that lived there a long time ago, and he said it didn't even look like that. He said he had lived there for, 15 years. And he knew Chinese very well. He knew Mandarin very well. But he didn't know Cantonese. And for those who don't understand, there's different types of dialects there. All Chinese can read a newspaper, no matter where it's from in China, but not all of them can speak together and understand one another, right? So someone from Shanghai, for example, and someone from Hong Kong, for example, may not be able to communicate. You understand what I'm saying? Because even though they both speak Chinese, it's a different dialect. But anyway, so he understood Chinese very well. But my ex, who was from Hong Kong, they didn't understand each other. And I had a friend from some other place. I think she was from Beijing, I believe. I'm not sure. But her and my ex would have conversations, and they would just look at each other like, what? And then, I get some of it, but it's like, huh? So it's fascinating. But anyhow, he was saying that when he was there was obviously high-rises and stuff and buildings and stuff. But what you see now that's kind of the symbol of Shanghai was just farmland. It was just not land that was really used. And the city has just moved forward so much that now they've encompassed that. And he said he wouldn't even know how to get around there anymore. And it's just shocking. And he had been even back a few years prior to that, and the city had changed drastically. So cities there in China just grow immensely fast. But here, there's not a lot of cities that grow, obviously, even close to that clip. Seattle is one of those that probably does in terms of size. But Seattle's skyline is one that is ridiculous. I remember it gave me the same feeling that I felt when I flew into Chicago for the first time. Flying in, broke through the clouds of Chicago, you can see all of the big, massive, tall buildings. They were just sick. And all of the other buildings, even though they're decent size, outside of downtown, decent size, all of those big, super tall structures just made them even that much taller. They look like a bunch of pens and markers just standing straight up on a table. They were just really impressive. And then, obviously you have the lake there, Lake Michigan, and all of that. It really amplified. In Seattle, I've talked about, flying through and you see the mountains, you see the volcanoes, and then you break through all of the water that you see, all of the green that you see. It looks like someone took a forest and just plopped a city right down in it, you know? Breaking through the clouds and seeing downtown is that same impression that I get where you have this flat water, you have a lot of hills and a lot of mountains and a lot of forests and stuff like that. And when I say forest, people think I mean like a big giant woodland forest or kind of like Point Defiance. But what I'm talking about is you see a lot of trees. You see a lot of evergreen trees just everywhere. And you see such a dramatic and impressive, densely packed downtown. Downtown Seattle is very densely packed. Of the cities I mentioned, the only other ones that were densely packed were New York and Chicago. Seattle is very densely packed, and it's getting more denser because of the simple fact there's hardly any land left available to develop. And so they're putting buildings, super tall structures right next to each other. I mentioned, Smith Tower in downtown Seattle, but, the Columbia Center and the F5 building, or it could be F4, I can't remember. All of those buildings, and there's another one. There's one that they call it's the Owamu building, but it looks like a spark plug. All of those buildings are literally close together, and they're super tall, and so it gives you such a big impact. You know what I mean? Like when you look at Chicago, it's got a broad shoulder type of skyline. From a distance, it's just a big, straight, long downtown because it kind of wraps around Lake Michigan. But in New York, it's just big everywhere. So it's just, you just see a column of buildings covering all of Manhattan. But when you look at Seattle, it is just a tight cluster of buildings, and you first see right there at the edge of the water, it seems, these massive tall buildings. If you're coming from the south up, that's the first thing you see. And off from the distance, you see the Space Needle. You know what I mean? So it kind of gives you an impression of the Space Needle is huge. It's really big, but it looks like a tiny little dot compared to these other buildings. So to me, Seattle's skyline is very impressive. It has drastically changed. Again, if you look at old pictures of Seattle just 30 years ago, it's drastically different. And especially with Amazon coming online, it has actually amplified that. South Lake Union was just a bunch of industrial buildings. And now you see what that looks like. It looks like its own downtown. But to me, and when I say Seattle, you could probably throw Bellevue in there too, because, it's kind of, but it's got a pretty impressive skyline. But nothing tops, in my opinion, Seattle. Now, some people may disagree, and there's other cities I haven't been to, but to be honest with you, I would say Seattle is number one, and that did it for me. I told Noelle, yep, I want to move here. I kind of bounced between San Diego and Miami for a bit, thinking of this question, because San Diego, I like their skyline also. It's really, really cool. You get a really good view of that skyline as you're landing because the airport literally is right there in downtown. And I really, really liked it. There's a building there, I don't know the name of it, but there are 3 columns, and they're circular, and they kind of got like a slant to them. And they light up at the top. They look like basically lit cigarettes. I don't know the name of that building. It's pretty impressive. But San Diego doesn't get that height scale that you're looking for. You know what I mean? Because the airport kind of prohibits that. If an airport's too close to downtown, the buildings can't be super tall because it interferes with all that. And it's a federal government regulation, the Federal Aviation Administration. So cities that do that, you can't have super tall. That's what gets cities like Phoenix kind of in trouble. They can't really build super tall buildings because the airport's so close. Albuquerque is another example. Boston kind of gets away with it, but still, you don't get a whole lot of big, massive, tall buildings. Boston's another city I've been to. Pretty impressive skyline, but the others edge it out. You see what I'm saying? They edge it out to me overall. But Yeah, I had to go back and forth between Miami and San Diego. Miami has just robustly built so much in the last little bit of time. They're doing even more stuff down there. It's just really, really sick. So they're trying to make their mark for sure. Atlanta's cool, but Atlanta's skyline to me, it's okay. I mean, there's too many different areas to kind of look at. Um, because you have Midtown, you have Uptown, you have Downtown, all look a little bit different, and the flow is a little different in all of them. So it's to me, it's just different. It's really cool downtown. Don't get me wrong, but it's not one that hits the register for me when it comes to some of the other places that I've been to. But anyhow, tell me what are your skylines that make sense to you. I can talk about this all day long. Make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.